Hey, it's Jeff back with our second video for week 6 of our online English 1020 class. And this one we're going to talk about looking ahead to Project 2. And although I want you to concentrate the majority of your effort this week for this class on revising your rough draft of Project 1, I'm going to be releasing screencasts the rest of the week, talking about, as I already mentioned, kind of common problems that are occurring typically with that project and how I'm seeing them occur in your rough draft so you can revise them and put your best effort forward for the final draft that'll be graded. And again, just remind you, is now due on Monday. Uh, but I also want to kind of take a look ahead at Project 2, and in particular, I want you to choose a topic for Project 2 so that when we move into that in earnest next week, we'll be hitting the ground running. Sound good? So let's take a look at Project 2. So I'm on our syllabus page. We looked at a project 2. If you haven't looked ahead already, you might recall from our first couple of days when we looked at the syllabus as a whole that your second project is a rhetorical analysis. Now, what does that mean? Well, we're going to be doing some reading starting next week on what rhetoric is and different kinds of tools that one might use for rhetorical analysis. So, so if the idea of doing that kind of analysis is a little confusing to you right now, don't worry. But most generally, you're going to be applying what we're going to learn about rhetoric over the next couple of weeks to a piece of discourse written by someone else, right? And that exercise is going to be a chance for you to show me what you've learned from our readings of the next couple of weeks. Again, we haven't done these yet, and how you can apply them to a particular text. Now, there's another little wrinkle in this. Now, all the texts that we're going to use, or I've created a list of approved texts you could use here. You can also, as mentioned, choose a text and ask my permission to use that for Project 2. But the criteria we're going to use to select text, the ones I used for this list and the ones that you'll have to use when you think about possible text, is that they should all be the kind of book length and rather long works by authors who are addressing a popular or non-specialist audience in the work, but who also write scholarship within a defined academic field. Now again, that might seem a little confusing, so let me look at the list of approved texts that I already posted. Okay, now, I don't know if you're familiar with any of these books, but these are all texts, and if you click on the links, they'll take you to the Amazon entries for these. That's not because I expect you to buy these books, but, just so you can find a little bit more information about them. But anyway, if you look into these books, you'll see that, like, say, the first two, for instance, are written by a neuroscientist, Antonio Damasio, and he publishes a lot of articles for other neuroscientists, right? And it's written in a register of how neuroscientists tend to publish scholarship. But these two books, Looking for Spinoza and Descartes' Era, are him presenting his research to a popular audience. Similarly, this book by Stanley Fish, who's an English professor, and here he's writing about how to write a sentence, but usually he writes for a different kind of more restricted academic audience. You might have heard of the book Freakonomics. It's probably the most famous of this list of not very famous books, but it's written by an economist who publishes economic scholarship for other economists, but also wrote this book for a popular audience. Just to give you one more example, this book by Freeman Dyson is, Dyson, if you don't know him, is a famous physicist. This book, A Many-Colored Glass, is written for a popular audience where he discusses some important points about contemporary knowledge of physics. So part of your challenge in rhetorical analysis is to talk about how the author will shift the way they discuss these works in the book written for a general or popular audience versus how they write about it in their scholarship. Now that requires you to both read this book for a popular audience, and again, you don't necessarily have to read the whole thing, but say you read a chapter or more, however much you think you need to get an idea of the major argument of the book and what kind of techniques and strategies the author uses to produce that argument. And again, if you're not sure what would count as a technique or strategy, don't worry. That's what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks. But you're also going to have to read at least, say, one article by that author written for an academic audience. And it should be pretty easy to access those using our online library resources. So if you choose one of the books in the approved text and you have difficulty finding an academic article by them, just let me know and I can send you some examples. If you want to pick a text maybe written by someone whose academic work you've read before, or if you're just interested in maybe reading a book for a popular audience but about the field you're interested in, if you're, say, pre-med and you want to read a book by a biology scholar that was written for a popular press audience for this project, you're welcome to do that. All you need to do is find that source and send it to me, and I'll let you know if it would qualify for this project. So again, we'll talk much more about the assignment over the next couple of weeks, and I gave you some examples here. I even have some examples of the previous students have written for this class. So as mentioned here, unfortunately, the genre component, what I mean by the fact that you're comparing how the author writes two different genres, wasn't part of this project the last time I taught it. So these will be good examples of people doing rhetorical analyses of popular press books where they identify the argumentative strategies, but they won't have that little component where you compare those strategies versus how the author makes different arguments for an academic audience. Again, maybe this seems a little unclear, but that's okay. We're going to talk about it over the next couple of weeks. But what I'd like you to do in the meantime is figure out what author and what text you'd like to work with for this project. So again, if you scroll on over to the list of approved texts, You can choose one of these. I'm going to add some more. I'd like you to email me if you have a request, right? Like say a particular topic or a particular field that you'd like me to recommend some books that might work for this project. I'd be happy to put those. But once you've chosen one, what you want to do is drop a comment down here and let me know what text you're going to be working with. So if it's from this list of approved text, you don't have to ask me about it at all. If it's not from this list, just shoot me an email and I'll let you know if it works for this project. And then once I say okay, you can drop it down at the end of this page. Now I'd like you to do this before midnight on 10/10 next week. So why am I asking you to commit to it? Well, because you're going to have to get a hold of the source. We have all these books in our library. You can find them at other libraries. I have copies of many of these books if you'd like to drop by my office and borrow one. So don't feel like you need to buy the book, although a lot of these books could be purchased pretty cheaply if you'd like to own them. But you need to get a copy of the book, or at least access to a couple of chapters of it. So for that reason, I'd like you to kind of commit to one early on so that you don't end up running into a problem close to the due date of the assignment and then not be able to get access to the source. Now, what is going to be the due date? Now, if you remember, we had this scheduled to be due, and it was a pretty ambitious due date I put in the syllabus of 10/12, which is going to be a little too close because we haven't really started this project in full swing, and also because your first project is due very close to that date. So of course we're going to push that back, and we're going to have a rough draft, and we'll do a rough draft workshop like we did for this one. But I'll figure out what would make sense as a rough draft due date when we start going through that project next week. But for now, look forward this week to more screencasts talking about Project 1 and different revision strategies you might have for it. Sound good? All right, again, as always, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email, send me a text, or give me a call. All right, I hope you have a great week, and I'll be back soon with more videos about revising Project 1.